what's up? What's good? What it do? Welcome everyone back yet to another episode of Just Jiving here with your host, Tarek. And today, I'm excited because I have another host of his own very show, the Matthew Dark Show. So we got two talkers here on the show today. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It's really good to be here. First time in studio. Can't wait to have it. And I know we've worked together a lot behind the scenes. First time on air. Can't wait to be here.
Yes, I've actually been editing his show, the Matthew Dark Show, for the past few weeks.
Made it audible.
Yes. Well, I mean, we both went to media school, but I did a little touch on,
Somebody did homework better and more thoroughly than myself, and I give full props to that.
Cheers, man. I appreciate that, bro, for real.
Cool.
Now today I got some Habesha. It's a golden lager from Ethiopia.
Ethiopian beer.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Where would you even find something like that? That's not over at 7-Eleven. You can't get those.
It's funny because I just happen to have a liquor store ran by Ethiopians right down the street.
You're kidding?
Yeah.
Wow.
So they have some Ethiopian beers. Oh, bro, it's great. It's a nice and light, and I love the malts that they use, and it has like this kind of Swedish yet slight tanginess to it. Mm-hmm. Like I don't really know how to describe it. I wish I did, but this is honestly one of my favorite just sipping, chilling beers.
Beautifully poured. He's got his head. It's exactly... it's been so long since I've had beer. That's 12 ounces?
No, so this is actually 11.2.
It's 11.2.
Yeah, because I think they go by milliliters, and I think it's like 550 or something like that.
Very cool.
550 milliliters. But anyway, before we begin, y'all remember to like the podcast, subscribe, follow, share, all of that. Engage with the social medias, the Just Jivin page on Facebook, the Just_JIVINN page on Instagram. And I mean, I have a Twitter, but those are the main two ones. Just, and if you have any inquiries or any topics you think I can rant or rave on about, be sure to send that to the Instagram at Just_Jivin. That's with two N's at the end. Marty, do you prefer Marty, Matthew?
Marty's just a short, quick one, gets right to business. Marty's here at attention, ready to roll.
I hear that. Well, Marty, sir, tell us a little about yourself, because the show that you have on now, yes. I'm not gonna lie, y'all, it is definitely on the more political side.
Yes.
And if you've been listening to the show, I mean, I have some political views, but I've never really gotten super intense with the shit. Yeah. And then I started editing his show, which you're very intense.
Thank you.
With the shit. Oh, my pleasure.
These are the most intense times we've seen. I couldn't imagine relating it to anything else. The Great Depression, World War II's, Vietnam's, 9/11, major impact. Nothing has touched society like COVID-19. That goes as simple as a child's daycare, your employment, adverse reactions to vaccines. What we try to do and want to do, see evil, slay evil, find hypocrites, slay them as well, and just give information to people that if they decide vaccine's good for me, treatment's good for me, we don't care, but at least you're informed. Please don't spin the truth when it comes to people's life and health. That's our position. Whether you wear a red tie or a blue tie, make sure we're indiscriminate upon that. A hypocrite wearing a red tie is just as evil as one in blue.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's another thing, because I was telling you about this because it's like you sound right leaning.
Sure.
But honestly, because I've been listening to your shit, so I have to edit it. I have to be objective when I edit. Yes. I can't have my biases or whatever.
Set aside, right?
Exactly. So I'm trying to get the message that you want to get across out, and I'm listening to it over and over and over again. And it's like, well, actually, it's kind of actually makes some sense,
right?
The whole idea of the hypocrisy of it. And everything that you talk about in your show, which is, I mean, I gotta salute you, Marty, because you're going on a path that might lead to some danger.
Well, we're unapologetic when it comes to protecting children and protecting healthcare choices, right? So I couldn't imagine a situation where 5 years flash forward, and the new thing is we are now vaccinating for X, Y, and Z. And I'm now signed up on this vaccination program, but I don't have a choice. I gave choice away in 2021 when I rolled over and said, okay, I'll do it because I'll get my freedoms back. They'll give me this benefit. They'll let me stay in public schools, blah, blah, blah. There's a choice right now for everybody. And it is very black and white, but it's not the black and white that you think of. It's not like that at all. What we're finding is that there's a pocket of patriots, I would call them. You can be pink, black, yellow, white. You can join this group. But these are people that say, something fishy's going on. I better do further investigation. I might want to see this play out before I sign up for a They want to vaccinate 5 to 11-year-olds. Okay. Now, whether you wear a red tie or a blue tie, that should cause concern for you.
Right.
We don't know anything about this. This is coming out on an emergency basis in which children, and we go through this stat on our show, but my goodness, flu is a killer of children at a 2-to-1 ratio. 2-to-1 mark.
Yes.
But we're not mandatoring flu vaccines. We're not sequestering for flu. We're not masking for flu. We're doing none of that. This is a COVID special. And at the end of the day, why? There's a lot of money and power in that COVID. Woo! Money and power and COVID are all grouped into one. And let's face it. Money and power are both hard to give back once you got it.
This is very true, Marty.
So we don't want to necessarily subject ourselves to anti-vax, anti-government. The world is against us. Not like that at all. But we want free choice in medical health care. We want that choice. And at least, the option of, we don't want to be discriminated against because we don't wear a mask or we don't have vaccines, so we can't participate. We don't think that's a fair society. We think your personal health care choices, your decisions you do in private, we bless you and we encourage you to continue those. And you only fall out of bounds in there when you're breaking law. But there's no law being broken when you choose to not wear a mask. It's a made-up law. It doesn't do anything. We talked about it on our show, too. For your listeners, I want them to hear this point. The COVID virus, the molecule, is aerosol-based, not water-based, where you might have it in a respiratory droplet. Water droplet being some 1,000 times larger than a COVID molecule, the virus itself, okay? I mean, this will blow you away. They equate the masking prevention of COVID akin to keeping a mouse out of your house with a chain link fence.
Huh.
Even worse, they've compared it to a mosquito out of your house with a chain link fence. We all know that's never, a mouse only needs the size of a dime and they're in.
A mosquito.
Mosquito even less, of course. So this is just theater. This is just for show, but it does have consequences. Respiratory, pneumonia, depression, anxiety. We talked about, a lot of this stuff is, a lot of learning language and communicating is facial expression and emotion,
right.
Demonstrative behavior.
Gestures.
Yes. I can only see your eyes. That's hard to tell. Are you stone cold? Are you happy inside? Are you hurting inside? Is there something? For me to communicate properly, I got to be passionate about what I'm talking about. You got to see my face to do that.
I got a new compliment the other day. Someone said I have smiley eyes.
Okay, I like that. You're an advantage going into a masked society. You will get away with it. You can smile right then. I like that. Some eyes, I guess, are scarier than others. There's no doubt.
This is true, but you got to be able to see the whole face.
I need the whole picture.
Yeah, and that's
how. I don't know if I'm smiling or joking around.
Exactly. That's how we have evolved as humans,
That's okay
as social
to do that.
beings. We got to see the face, understand the emotions, expression. And then when you have the mask on, it's just, because I'm not even trying to get on some crazy conspiratorial shit, but how are you going to learn how to be a human if you can't read people?
Well, there you go. You got first leg done. This was an amazing sort of study they did. It had to do with Islam upbringing and where the women are masked. They're in their gear, their attire. And what they do is they start that very, very young, 3 years old. And what they said is it's so much easier to get compliance if you extend this sort of messaging early and often so that when they are grown women, they're in full gear. They don't even think about that. It's the same thing here when you shape because, President Xi of China would be very, very proud of what the steps that are being taken here. Number one being is that the mask, like in our daycare, and this is going on everywhere, they actually have a segment of their morning. And our kids are leaving this school, by the way. They're gone. They're going to be probably within the next 6 weeks, they'll be gone because one of the moments in start the day is they teach kids about masks and how to properly wear a mask and all this stuff. So I remember in elementary, younger school, they would give you some basic hygiene washing your hands, brushing your teeth, those things, the importance of bathing. And I remember that kind of education. What they've done is they've subtly introduced this now masking as a staple of society. And so they're actually sitting in their little circle time, they call it, and they say, this is how we properly wear a mask and this is why they do it. When, we're not going to lie. We've already seen all the research on the mask. It does nothing. Surgeons, just so anybody thinks, well, why did surgeons wear it? Water droplet, respiratory droplet is going to get blocked by that kind of a mask. Those mask boxes say right there, will not prevent COVID-19, will not reduce risk of infection. It says all that on the box, but we put them on blindly. Don't ask any questions. We don't ask any demand reasons why our government says your 2-year-old will start in a mask, and until they're 18, they will wear one if they want to be in public.
That doesn't make sense. It doesn't. Why is that something that you need to spend actual time in the day teaching?
Programming, compliance, submission, continue, sit down, go there. I mean,
we're verging on conspiracy theory type shit here, Marty.
I'm just telling you that I'm real live. I'm knee deep. And you're right. I could be way off, and they're just so brain dead. They're saying, well, put the mask on. It's good for everybody, right? It could be that simple. Could be that naive. But at the end of the day, is it okay to encourage ongoing mental illness when you know there's a problem? Where to get these people help and treatment? To run around with a mask still in October of 2021, I'm sorry, you'd have to be mentally ill to continue to submit to that. Because there's no evidence that it does anything. And in fact, there's a lot to the contrary. And then one more up, your kids in pneumonia risk and bacterial infection risk just went through the roof. Another stat that's amazing when you tie in, masking, and because this is all about protecting children, right? This is what we're doing this for, supposedly, under the guise of. Your child is 8 times more likely to die driving them to school than they ever would of COVID. That's just a fact. The numbers play out every day.
Just driving?
You're driving a kid to school.
Oh,
they are 8 times more likely to die on that route to school than they are to die of COVID-19. Okay, that's just the math. So you're actually, freaking out about your kids in a mask and public schools and teachers. And don't get me started on teachers. But you're taking a risk substantially more significant just by going to the park because they're in a car. Driving accidents are 10 times a greater killer than COVID to children. We have to know about those facts because we're implementing emergency policy procedure to protect children, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, our children are doing wonderful. Our children, thank God, are doing wonderful with the disease. Our seniors, our obese, our compromised are the ones that are dying. 80% of those, that's the consistent theme in those cases. And so we're focusing our attention on the wrong category of people. Now, I know why they're doing it. But would you ever treat an 85-year-old man and a 5-year-old boy the same medically? I mean, those bodies are not even in the same, but they want to apply the same standard to 2 groups that are just not the same.
Because all lives are valuable, right?
Right. If it saves one life, right? Sure.
I mean, that is what I keep on hearing. The argument is that, well, because I know people whose family members have died from COVID or maybe complications from or whatever.
Sure.
And that sucks. And
don't ever misconstrue. We take COVID, the disease, the virus, very seriously, and that it will have absolutely terrible impact left untreated for those in those categories. So there's no doubt about that. What we're suggesting is that there's been ample and plenty of treatment available for a long time.
Outside of vaccinations.
And you don't hear the word treatment enough. Okay. Now, this is maybe conspiratorial or not, but ivermectin has been being used highly effectively with COVID-19 for some time. That research is enjoy. Okay. If you like reading research and effectiveness, there's more than enough there. But that's not been mainstream available. In fact, it's the opposite. It's actually, you are outcasted, you are attacked, you are scrutinized if you were to prescribe or treat or options outside of the vaccine. That's just sort of been the messaging.
Was that horse dewormer or something like that?
And then that's a beautiful thing. I'm so glad. And this kind of came with the Joe Rogan situation, right, where he was COVID positive and he was prescribed ivermectin for his treatment. And then what had happened is some of the outlets had basically then mocked that treatment as horse dewormer. Now, be very, very clear to the listener that it's been used successfully in humans and in animals for 40 years, right? I had a great friend. He was a hawk trainer, trained hawks, so this thing would fly around a stadium and land on his hand. But the hawk GI system is one of the most sensitive on the planet, to where even a drop of bleach was to enter them, just a droplet of bleach could kill them instantly.
Wow.
But there are parasite tendencies with hawk, that what they're eating, what they're consuming, the environment. He's used ivermectin on his hawks forever, clears them up like that. He's never lost one to it, right? Humans is even a greater rate. I mean, it's eradicated serious disease. Africa, and in Africa, when they actually first got ivermectin going, and it kind of came with this miracle cure, Merck, the maker of, donated millions of doses to all the communities that were going to be affected, countries that were affected. Do you think now with this new pill from Merck coming out that is essentially, we argue, ivermectin with some changes, do you think they'll be donating that to the millions by the? No. Because that's going to go for about $700 a dose type of stuff. So if you need your 10-day pack to get well, okay, so it's another money grab, right?
Follow the money, huh?
Follow that money, because ivermectin's cheap and effective and available right now. but you are subject to penalty for prescribing it in some states. And so when I hear save one life, and they say that messaging, I say bullshit, because you've had treatment available for a year. You remember Trump, he mentioned hydroxychloroquine early last summer, a little over a year ago now. That product was immediately taken off the market because it was effective. Now, hydroxychloroquine has a little bit more contraindications than ivermectin, so you have to watch there. So it's not as good mainstream. But the problem is there's been treatment perklings for some time, and we've denied that. So when they say put a mask on because it saves one lives, my middle fingers go up, because I know you don't give a crap about one life. You could save 100 right now. Just give them this medicine. In India, they drop this stuff off at your door. If you get sick, take this, do this. And they eradicate stuff out of India is 1 billion people, massive, right? But they'll have these little communities, cities, but they're kind of rural. They'll eradicate. They've eradicated COVID out of a lot of those communities because why? They've had herd immunity. Everybody's recovered naturally with this treatment, and you're not vaccinating that area. They're safe. They're clear. It's a lifetime thing. So yeah, and I don't think our show is just a COVID political store, but we just talked about COVID, the vaccine, the virus, the tragedy, all the pain, everything that goes with COVID impacts and affects every single person on this planet's life. At least in this country, I know it does. And in other developed countries, I know it does.
It's different than just talking about it from a political perspective.
Yeah,
it's just saying it because it's going to affect you in a political sense as well as a daily personal sense.
Yes,
as a livelihood sense, and all that is it's permeating. Yeah. To all aspects of our life, and that's kind of what you want to.
That's what we're talking about.
I see.
Awareness to what's coming into your life, regardless. I don't care if you like red ties or black ties, but do you want the right to continue raising your children the way you see fit? Do you wish to continue your employment the way you currently are, whether that's vaccinated or how about this, recovered naturally from COVID? We believe you deserve all those rights maintained, regardless of your political party.
So there's actual studies that show that natural immunity
recovered. So you have immunity now, naturally recovered. Yes.
Okay.
That's lifelong. That's going to look very similar in that T-cell antibody testing to chickenpox, which nobody runs around if they've had chickenpox fearful they're going to get it again.
Well, this is kind of annoying me, Marty, because from what you say, it sounds like the only reason why, and again, why does it sound conspiratorial? Is that a word?
Yeah, it's a very good word. It's a wonderful word. And
why does it sound like that when we're like, yo, this doesn't make sense? Because I'll be honest, I wanted to wait at least a couple years to see if there's any kind of hidden or latent kind of side effects that might pop
totally
up.
Reasonable.
You know what I'm saying? Because I always thought that vaccines take like a few years.
10, 20, 30 years you'll have in development and research. 12 years would be an astounding rate to get a quality vaccine that was effective and safe. That would be an amazing feat. They did this in 6 months. Rolled it out in a year. Put it in a microwave. Here it comes. I remember very early on, the Johnson & Johnson had to be kept at like 40 degrees or below at all times. And then they kind of said, okay, yeah. And then they had to honor an expiration date. And then they kind of said, yeah, FDA's looking if we can extend that expiration date. Listen, they've bought in some 500 some million doses of this stuff. They're going to use it. And then when that's all done, see, here's the problem. When you sign up for this thing, you're signing up not just for the 3 times a year, but you're doing that for life. So, a 5-year-old.
Forever? 3 years forever?
3 year forever, because its effectiveness is 6-8 weeks. We know that. The only idea is that where the cycle would stop is recovering from COVID naturally, but see, they're still making you do a vaccine. Because now you have super immunity is what they describe it as. But, contrary to all vaccine.
Super immunity.
That's what Fauci says. If you've recovered naturally, so you have the antibodies in your body, and then you take the vaccine, they're promoting that. So even though you've recovered, they want you to get the shot too. And this gives even those people what he's calling super immunity towards COVID-19. But it defies all vaccine sense, because you don't vaccinate something you just recovered from. You just recovered from it. You don't go get a vaccine. It defies everything. And that's why when you say conspiratorial, it's like, is it? Because this is defying every single thing we've ever heard of. But you tell me it's all legit and you like it, and President Xi would be so happy with the way you're implementing this. And notice how COVID didn't spread throughout China, but it made its way here and stuck here, right? Just Wuhan.
I thought they did have Wuhan. Oh.
Just Wuhan, because you know those billion plus people in China, that thing could have got out of control in China, really, really big. It didn't devastate China like it did us, but it shut us down.
Well, you know, all of this research that you talk about, whatnot, is available online, right?
Yeah. So what you can do with this, it's Roots Medical is the practice. So we've been knee deep in a lot of this stuff, but you can follow the Matthew Dark Show at gmail.com, and we do make those available. So we can teach you part of our newslettering, our nutrition plans. Love to have anybody on it. You know, so unfortunately, this subject ends up dominating the show because it dominates your everyday life. I cannot remember a day in which there wasn't a COVID-related experience, either a mask situation or a comment about vaccine that was troubling or disturbing, you know, and now it's the 5 to 11-year-olds. It's a very unfair situation. It's unfair. It's unfair because there's a lot of people that through no fault of their own are being displaced, harmed, physically now. Vaccine injuries are real and alive, but they don't really have a method to fight. Okay. So we want to extend that empowerment to people to stand up. This is a non-negotiable. If you stick me with that shot, I might blow your head off kind of thing. That's the way my position is. Okay. It's if you were to bring that toward my child, your own life is in jeopardy. But I have that kind of conviction. And I have that kind of conviction because I have all the knowledge about it. And it's not to be arrogant or braggadociously, but you know, it does require absorbing and listening to information, open-mindedness. So if you've been closed-minded and you're 100% in love with this vaccine and this, I don't even call it the vaccine, you're kind of having to go along with the masking, the shutdown talk, you know, this COVID's the biggest thing in the world every day. You know, you're signing up for all of that on one side, and the other side is saying, no, we do believe you should come and go as you please. You shouldn't be forced to have a vaccine to keep your job. They can't do that, by the way. You're having your healthcare professionals, you'd lose half of them overnight. And does it ever make anybody stop and pause why there's so much resistance from healthcare professionals about the vaccine? I mean, just stop for a second. These are people that should know more than the cashier at Whole Foods, right? Should.
I know a lot of people in the medical field that don't want
They don't want to do it right now. But you got to fire them. So you got a neurosurgeon who's now on the streets. He could be helping patients. He's fired because he didn't do a vaccine. And you're doing all this in the name of health and saving lives. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't add up. And that's that little eyeball test, smell test. Something's not right. It can't be. Because they hate you for not getting the vaccine, but they care about you enough to put that aside, get you the vaccine, get you well. I didn't believe that. I'm sorry. You despise all those who defy the emperor. And that's really what we're at is are you going to concede to this sort of certainly authoritarian type rule? And right now it is a liberal-led rule because that's where the control is. So are you signing up for that? Indefinitely now, when they say masks and they say vaccines, when a vaccine came
supposed to be over.
It's supposed to be over. 2 weeks to flatten the curve, right? We did that, extended forever. The vaccine, when it was rolled out, there was no talk of a booster. There was no talk of 3 shots in 9 months. There was no talk of that. That all sort of is ad lib as we go. And okay, well, here comes next year, and here comes the following year. Now you got this poor 3-year-old who's had 6 shots by the time he's he's entering preschool. Kindergarten.
I don't know if I like that.
I think it'd be messed up. I mean, I don't know. The science says it's there. They said there's no harm, even though how could you possibly know there's no long-term damage to that kind of vaccination schedule? Right. How could you know that yet?
That's what I'm saying. You can't know any of that yet. You need to give more time. That science takes time.
It takes time.
Totally.
And it's not a guaranteed lock today. We know it'll evolves. We know that.
Exactly.
And if you're closed-minded to evolution of this stuff, then you resort to authoritarian, gun to your head, do this or else. Because the science isn't adding up to the effectiveness. All the 4 out of 5 people in the hospital right now are vaccinated for COVID-related stuff. 4 out of 5? Now they're down to just saying, well, if you get vaccinated, all it does is it prevents death. Naturally, over 100 million people have been infected with COVID. We've lost little under 700,000. And again, our heart does pour, and we do mourn for that. Of course, that's, you could argue they should still be here, right? Because had the Chinese not dropped, conspiratorial, had the Chinese not dropped this bomb of COVID-19, the China virus, well, none of this would have happened, you could say. Well, point being is that we can't take this one isolated terrorist activity, in theory, from China.
In theory,
allegedly. In theory, if I slip you something that makes you sick and die, I didn't shoot you, murder you, but you're just as dead. So whether they do it driving into our buildings like 9/11 style, or they drop a killer like this, or we're irresponsible in the way they handled it, I'm sorry. Yeah, you got a lot of American deaths on your hands. But the truth is that 99.8% 8.23666% of people are going to recover from COVID naturally without a vaccine. The numbers are already there. Herd immunity is a real thing, okay? And COVID will very well be something like the flu, where you always had to have a bit of it. But when's the last time you entered a flu lockdown or had to mask for the flu? You've never had to do that, right? In your life?
Flu.
No.
I mean, there's flu season.
Yeah, and you get your shot if you want. You got Tamiflu if you want. But those have all been your choices in the past, and we're suggesting that everything else still should remain that way. COVID's not a specialty.
I see.
So that's our desire for society.
All right, Mr. Dark. Well, you know what? Let's show off a little bit with some fun.
Okay.
Because
yes, bring us down to fun.
Well, because we have a lot. The listeners have a lot to think about after that.
Yeah, let them absorb it.
I do.
Take it all in.
You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And we definitely want to have you on to maybe go into some more other shit. Now, you see these two containers.
Yes.
That you got in front of you right here. They got slips with words in them.
Okay.
And you're gonna pick a slip.
Okay. And
we're gonna riff on that word.
Okay.
And if you don't know what the word means, then we'll get the definition, because I think there's words like there's some words in there. Like I think I have prestidigitation somewhere in there.
Oh my gosh! Now we can use dictionary type resources for this exercise.
Yes, you can. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you can. You can look up the word. Okay. Absolutely. That's the whole point.
Very good.
Get us to learn words and learn how to. Okay. Especially because as hosts, since we do a lot of riffing. So
yeah, you're right.
Go ahead, pick a.
You like black or white, or is there a difference in words?
I'm trying to get better at differentiating between what's in each, but let's just say that I kind of tried to have a little theme going. Open the side, get the sides going.
Okay, I know it now. Okay, here we go. Of course, I'm pulling out the morality. Wow! What a great word for these times.
That's great.
Okay. Well, really, isn't it a morality check what we're talking about right now?
I was about to say something like that. Yeah.
If I think about this, and I don't want to bring it back to, I'll get off these masks, but for me, if you see a 2-year-old in a mask and he's not wearing it correctly, here's a moral decision. Do you think you have the right to go up to that child and tell him to put it on correctly, or does your inner morals tell you that's not my place? I'm getting out of here. It's a morality check for every single citizen going right now. What a beautiful word.
It's very true. There's a lot of, and it's funny because this whole situation has brought up the subject of ethics and morality and things like that way more often, and how you treat other people and what it means to do the right thing and things like that. And it's just like, okay, now, if I was confused before, I'm definitely confused now.
Correct, because of the moving goalpost that you're talking about. Go back to the instance of this. This is the beautiful one. The George Floyd summer, right? Where you had the looting, you had the burning, you had all that stuff going on, right? That was a big event in America. It really was, right? Go to January 6th. The Capitol thing, the great insurrection. The difference in those two, coverage-wise, demonizing, how we sort of assess the damage of the two events was totally a case of we shifted morality and applied different standards of morals to George Floyd's situation. Because, see, there was no reason for cities to burn. There was no reason. It wasn't accomplishing the goal.
Okay, so you're getting some deep shit right now. Okay,
because I live, eat, and breathe morality, I hope.
So as someone who is a black person in America.
Yes.
Right. So what I was hearing was a lot of anger. Yes. And I understand that. Yes. Because of how I was raised and what I was told and all that stuff. However, for me personally, I'm going to say that in any case, no matter what the situation is, I don't agree with looting or burning things or whatnot. And if you are going to do that, be strategic about it. Like, go to the local Treasury or IRS or something, or some like crooked spot that has been doing some fucked up shit. Burn that shit.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Not the mom and pop that has nothing to do with this, right? The Korean grocery store owner that's just trying to make a couple of bucks.
And then I see a whole bunch of, the one thing I hated seeing was, my fellow black people getting on my fellow Asian brothers and sisters for no reason.
Beating them down for no reason.
Yeah, but I don't know. I guess for me, I don't have to choose my words carefully at all.
No.
The thing is that I don't agree with a lot of the actions that have been portrayed in that, but I understand the anger.
That's the deal.
I'm not sure how to
And that's that
express it.
That's that shifting morality, because what I always have to think is that if you put the shoe on the other foot, would you be cool with that, right? So, for example, pissed off white dudes go into an inner city, burn a fucker down just because they're pissed, right? That's outrageous conduct, in my opinion.
Like,
disgustful. So this isn't what this is where I think the critical error was made, is that the anger that you talked about, the pain that's there, because do not misunderstand or underestimate. I know cops, certain segment of cops take advantage of blacks in a bad spot, okay, and know that their position of power can be really overwhelming in a black community. I know that, right? Because you don't always have. It's a hostile situation. I mean, we need to talk a lot, and need a 4-hour show for that, about why that culture exists. That's a big deal to talk about too. But the policing is absolutely, you don't get the benefit of the doubt as a black dude in the inner city. That's my opinion, right? You don't get the benefit of the doubt like I would, right? And that's not right. And that's where I say, that's where you start. The conversation is the equality piece in the rules being applied fairly to both. Now, here's what we did wrong in this case, is because we felt that pain and because we felt that sympathy, right, for the situation, the outpouring of the black community, which was, warranted in the time. It was all about that. The issue is that we justified bad behavior. We reinforced very bad behavior by not saying, whoa. I mean, I'll give you the example. Looters and rioters. And we still, why? Because George Floyd died, does this other person who has nothing to do with it feel the ability to go in and take merchandise out of a store, burn a store down, or, assault?
Yeah,
there was no license to do that, right? And so we missed an opportunity to say, we hear you, the rest of the world hears you, and we attack the cause, which would be the better policing and safety in the inner cities is really, I think, should be the theme, okay? A more peaceful inner city, and God forbid, rise up an inner city, okay? But the fact that we said, well, because you were mad about this George Floyd situation, it gets you off the hook for this bad behavior. That's where we miss it, because I go to the insurrection event and I say, why is that different? And why is that different? This is something that these people were mad too, and they wouldn't express their views publicly, and not to your liking or not to the politicians' liking. And so we've shifted morality there too. That those are world terrorists, domestic terrorists, the world's most dangerous terrorists, but yet the damage, the billions and billions and billions of dollars in damages and losses. I mean, would you go live in Minneapolis right now?
No,
Seattle, they've done some drastic stuff there, and the whole point is that we've shifted the consciences. What used to be intolerable is tolerated. We've shifted tolerability, and we know that because in places like California, they don't want to prosecute shoplifting under $1,000. That's a big deal, though. That's a big problem for a store owner, right? So we decriminalize, we soften, we change morality. That's bad for society. Always will be. But it's a deep thoughter.
Marty, the reason why I'm struggling because I usually have a rebuttal like right off the bat with these kind of things, but because you're bringing up points, and
that's unfair too. You gotta be out of fair.
No, I understand that because the whole thing about the people in the insurrection with the Capitol building and whatnot is that. Where were the guards, and why wasn't they shooting motherfuckers?
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So that's
why were they holding the door open for them to get up higher?
Yeah, and so that's when, other black people I heard, they were getting upset. It's like, oh, well, if a black person tried to do that, they would get shot, blah, 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 and that type of stuff. And that's where the more anger rose. But at the same time, those are two different situations in a sense. And
they're different, but you got to apply the law.
Let's think about it.
Dude, let's think about it. I mean, if I have I'd be scared to death to go to jail or I'm scared of that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
It freaks me out because I know I'll get destroyed there, right? And I know that. Either. And it'd be over, and you'd find me like, Epstein style, hanging on a noose, right? So I try to stay clean when it comes to that stuff. But if all of a sudden, speeding is okay, right? There's no laws for that. If shoplifting is okay, there's no laws for that. Drinking and driving. I mean, as soon as the laws change, I will extend my behavior to reach the maximum of that. And so when you take away consequences for me, My inner selfish, greedy self, I don't know. Could I do things there's no law that says I can't steal this candy bar. There's no law that's not going to happen to me. Why wouldn't I take it?
So,
right? So that's why you got to keep this sort of always white or black or pink or yellow. Our laws we apply the standard here, and I'm sorry, you can't take that. You can't take somebody's car. You're going to jail.
And while I do understand the argument as to how people in power can abuse the power.
Oh yeah, they're good at that.
But anyone can.
True.
No, and anyone can take advantage of a situation that can benefit them and bring harm to someone else. So I do kind of agree with the whole there still needs to be some kind of basic standard all across the board. Because otherwise, in reality, you are just going to have situations where you can just pick and choose what to do.
And that's so hard to do.
Yeah, I mean,
you're a nice dude, so let's hook you up. This dude has a troubled past, so let's throw the book at him. It's like, there's just some crimes here's the deal. We appreciate your almost everybody's got a reason for doing what they do, right? Mm-hmm. Don't matter. You tell me, well, why'd you run that red light? Well, I had to get to where I was going. I was in a hurry. I don't have time to stop. Everybody's got a reason for doing a bad thing, but doesn't mean it's a valid one.
No.
Great, sir. I'm sorry you're late. You're going to be even later now because you're getting a ticket for this red light. It's the way the world works. I know that going into it. So you know what I do now as a more, mature person is I stop at that red light because I know the consequences aren't worth it. I can't change it anyways. So I could care less about if they throw the book at these insurrection people. But I think it would be a silly message and a very diabolical message to do that. And then you let the looters, the rioters, the arsonists
get away with it.
Get away with it. Because what do you tell the looter and the arsonist and the rioter next time? Because there'll be another one. There's too many people out there that not have another police incident, right? Something else will happen, right? And we don't want it to. Just that's the way the laws, the size of the country is. What's if it happens again, is that an excused behavior now? But we set a standard for, I've never understood that. I'm mad at my wife, so let's just burn my own house down, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like the standard is holy cow. This is because it's so devastating to those communities to live to where criminals are empowered and bad morals are empowered. I don't want to live around. I want to know that you got decent morale or morality. And what I mean by morality is that you value life and others because of what they have right here, right? That's what I think I'm looking for.
The content of the character.
Yeah, and your desire to help others, serve others, be appropriate with others, right?
Right.
Me first society just doesn't work. Not for healthy relationships.
No, you can't have it. And I've actually been thinking about this a lot. And the thing that sucks is that, to get to where I think that we need to be as a community, at least for my fellow brothers and sisters, we need to start forming our own communities where people who have like-minded ideals and goals can work together. And
totally.
And that's not to say only black people, whatever. No, we just get people like-minded together, and then it just grows.
I'm so glad you said that, because what I do believe is forming right now in society is, of course, you got the hystericals on both ends, right? Mm-hmm. The radical lockdowns, and then the polar opposite on this side. But there's also a group of people, and they've come in yellow and pink and black and all these different colors, that just simply say, I liked America the way it was when I was free to go about. I mean, you're free to get your living and do your freedoms, right? I mean, just like me. Mm-hmm. Right? But we both want to preserve those, or maybe this and that. So and I would argue it's probably close to 100 million people of this like-minded. Now, maybe they haven't gotten through the barriers of color, the barriers of demographic, the barriers of age and lifestyle and interest. But if you have that common connection of, I don't think this is for me. I don't think the government has my best interest in this case. I want that choice to come to me and my family when and if I have to make it. For those that want to preserve that way of life, and when they cast a vote, they know that's a legitimate vote. For those that say, you know what, I do like a safe community. I do like the borders closed. I don't like our servicemen being blown up on our way out of Afghanistan. I preserve and cherish God in my home, or the church, or the school, or, people like those rights and those freedoms to exercise that. And there's a group of 100 million, I think, that are going to say, nah, this ain't for us. And, votes speak. You hope you get integrity. You hope you get election. 81 million votes for that. and he can't take one question after a presser. You telling me this is the most popular president in the history of voting of all time? 81 million? I don't believe that number. I don't believe that number for a second. I wouldn't believe 41 million. Nobody would sign up for this junk.
So you think it was rigged or some shit, huh?
Well, when you dump ballots, so the whole idea of ballot harvesting and this mail-in ballot thing is just unnatural, because what it does is it puts ballots in the hands of people who have expressed for many, many, many years they have absolutely no interest in voting. So they just stick them in your door, and for all we know that they're pre-labeled or with some recommendations. I don't know, but the old-fashioned thing is that voting's a right. Voting is important. Voting requires personal effort to go out and do it, either getting in a mail-in, but doing it the right way, or dropping off your ballot on election day. And they have so much early voting right now, but they used it to just dump them out there like lotto tickets.
So you don't want it to be easier to?
No, I don't want it to be. I don't want it to be unsolicited. Right? Meaning, so if you just take a million ballots and dump them into a community that's not voting, I don't trust the integrity of that at all, because there's no reason for that person to need that luxury. I mean, I know what to do if I want to vote. So every 4 years, it's not a big deal. You do it one time every 4 years.
Okay.
Go do it.
Right.
They talk about voter ID. Yeah, I do want you to have an ID to vote, right? I want to make sure that you are casting your vote. That's not racist. That's not an impediment. That's a regular old ID. If you don't have an ID, maybe you're not ready for voting. Let's think about that. You have no identification in your life and you want to vote. Maybe you're not ready. Oh, I'm sorry. I can't do anything without an ID. Can you? I can buy candy. But if I want to write a check, they might want an ID. But outside that, you can't do much. Couldn't buy smokes, couldn't buy booze, couldn't go to airport. Forget it. You want to fly without an ID? Give me a break. Not going to happen.
This is true. I like conversations like these, Marty, because, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to put this out there knowing that this is going to ruffle up some feathers.
Yes.
But to be honest, I want to continue talking about shit like this.
Yes.
Because I'm thinking very heavily now. And I'm going
we want
to
get in deep thought. Mm-hmm. Okay. And the reason you get into deep thought is because, let's see, I heard what I heard on CNN. I heard what I heard on social media. I heard what I heard on Fox News. I need a chance to process all this and kind of get my own opinion. I can't just take this. We are beyond the point in time where the news is going to tell you the legit stuff, right?
Yes.
It needs to be filtered through other sources, a friend, your own thought, asking questions, and it's okay not to know. The shame is if the appropriate information isn't made available to those seeking guidance. Mm-hmm. They're not bad people. They just need education. They need empowerment. And, unfortunately it's not a fair and balanced dispensing of information.
I agree with that. And it shouldn't be hard to get information for stuff. And that should be one of the most easiest things.
It's right there for you.
Just true information, it's not something that you have to be afraid that it's biased or let something out or blah, 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 any of that stuff. You are absolutely right. You know what, Marty? We will end this here for now.
Yes, we'll pick it back up someday.
Yeah, we're going to have to. But before you leave here today, my brother.
Yeah.
The way that I like to end this show with guests on, is I like to leave them. I like to have them leave the audience with a little something of themselves. Okay. Give the people. I mean, you gave a lot of Marty right now, but still leave a little piece of Marty for the future.
Let me give you one little piece here right now, and folks, I want you to take this to heart and take it like gold. If you care about your current life, your children, your family, your job, your healthcare, I ask you right now. Ask questions. And when your neighbor comes up to you and you start talking about the vaccine, challenge your neighbor. Ask your neighbor why they know this is so true, because there's a lot of shaming going on right there. But folks, this is the best one to leave with. A trust in God, a trust in a power greater than yourself, a faith-based, informative, open-minded person is the one that succeeds through this thing. There's so much misinformation. There's so much evil. There's so much forces moving against the way things used to be. Folks, there is no going back here. Ask anybody in China if they'd rather live in the U.S. or China, outside of their billionaires. You just got to ask one. Most of our people that are loving the lockdowns, loving the vaccination mandates, loving the travel passports, folks, they wouldn't last an afternoon. They wouldn't last one shift in China. But they want you to live like that. Never ever forget that. They are exempt from the vaccine in Congress, but you're not. Our Afghan brothers that are coming over here now in the hundreds of thousands, the vaccine is optional. Our illegal aliens that are surging over the border, they are not vaccinated. They are dropping into your communities. Folks, if you can't smell what's going on, I ask you to wake up now. Slap yourself in the face if you need to, because we'll need your full attention if you want to make it through this thing. That's all I got, dude. This has been a freaking blast on the show. In the studio, I'm loving it.
Hell yeah, dude. No, this is man. I knew it was gonna be fun, but god damn.
That's right.
It's been awesome, man.
Tomorrow, we'll be back tomorrow, the next day, Friday. This is now a 7-day-a-week, 3-hour-a-day show, folks. You got it.
This is the Just Driving Show featuring Marty, baby. Nah, for real, bro. I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much.
Hell yeah.
Have you on once again. Thank you all out there for listening. We appreciate your time, your presence, and your existence.
Yes, sir.
Y'all remember to talk to your loved ones in person. Communicate with all your friends and family in person, phone call, Zoom, anything above a text. Keep that communication going. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And remember to stay striving, keep it jiving.
Yes.
And we'll catch y'all beautiful motherfuckers here next week for another episode. And until then, deuces.
Peace.
Yeah, that was fucking awesome.